Namaste and welcome to Urban.chatterati. This is Abhinav Prakash. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Ratan Sharda ji, who is an author, one of the most erudite commentators on the Indian issues, on the issues related to RSS, its journey as a movement in the last 7 decades. So Ratan Sharda ji, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Abhinavji. Thanks for inviting me. And it is wonderful always to chat with you.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, your new book has come out, which is The Conflict Resolution, the RSS Way. And this is a very unique book you have written because we don't really know by we, I mean the common public do not really know how the RSS functions to resolve the conflicts, how RSS functions to resolve the different disputes, both within the organization and also outside the organization when faced with the national issues, social issues, and other issues. So this is a very important book, and I would like to start by asking you the first question: why did you choose to write this book on this topic?
Abhinavji, actually, this book is a rewritten form of my thesis, which are understanding RSS through its resolutions. My guide, Dr. Ishant Pathak, who I have noted here as a co-author, was my guide. And he gave me idea that RSS policies are always spelled out in their resolutions. They don't come via any public conference, etc. If you remember, RSS media cell became active only in 1990. So all the issues that came up in the nation were only twice commented upon, very rarely in between unless there was an emergency, through their Akhil Bharatiya Pratinidhi Sabha resolutions or Kendriya Karyakarani resolutions. So they become the true document of RSS thinking, RSS working. So I chose that to understand RSS. And there were many topics. There were nearly 19 topics when I broke them into various counts. And I found that maximum number of resolutions were passed on issues which related to conflicts within Bharat, right from the day of independence when RSS started organizing Akhil Bharatiya Pratinidhi Sabha as per its new form in 1950. So I decided to focus on those because otherwise it will become unwieldy and will not be able to get into more details. So I chose this topic. Then I rewrote this because I realized we are talking of insurgency, we are talking of conflict. So this was rewritten in the form of this book. And reason for writing this is that RSS has not been looked upon except through the glasses of Hindutva, Hindu Rashtra, communalism, fascism. All the time we are discussing these issues, we are always trying to justify or negate RSS through these 3-4 points. But RSS being present in the entire spectrum of the nation in every dimension, RSS impacts the national life in every possible way, which has not generally been appreciated or even understood. So now idea was that beyond this, what RSS has done in real life, because people say RSS ne kya kiya, RSS ka impact kya hua. So idea was to have an academic viewpoint where I have chosen RSS viewpoint. I have tried to see whether after speaking or making resolutions, everybody passes resolutions. It is not something new. So one is resolutions are initiated by the common worker of the RSS who comes as a delegate in the Akhil Bharatiya Pratinidhi Sabha elected by the local bodies. Then that resolution is debated in hours or in even days. And finally, a copy is made where a consensus is arrived. Now to pass resolutions always through consensus and take everybody along to fine-tune something very unique to this RSS as an organization, ability to get people along and create a consensus. And there are very free discussions. When you go through the documents, you realize that how open the discussions are. In fact, there are stories like, for example, on the reservation itself, there are bitter debates. Bala Saheb Deras was very sick at that time. He could not even sit in the chair. He was such a terrible pain, exacerbated diabetes, etc., plus bone pains, etc. When he heard the debate sitting in his room or lying down in his bed, he was very upset. He said, I want to go down tomorrow morning. They said, you can't even sit. Why do you want to do that? He said, I want to go down. So he went down on the wheelchair. He just spoke for 1 minute. He said, my dear friends, my brethren, I have heard your discussions on reservation and on the caste issues. I would just make one request. So think yourself born in that particular place where your Dalit brothers and your scheduled caste brothers are born, or less fortunate people are born, and then start speaking. That 2 sentences change the entire complexion of the discussion. And then you find the new way the RSS looked at reservations and other issues of the casteism. So this is how resolutions are passed. Now those resolutions, what do you do on the ground? Every resolution says appeals to the to RSS themselves to do certain things on the ground. Then sometimes special bodies are created, sometimes special vehicles are created for that, and then they also appeal to the common people. So this way of supporting the resolution of a particular conflict, even while you're criticizing the government of the day, cautioning the government of the day, and then going ahead to create an environment where conflict can be resolved, is again something unique that RSS has done, which is not yet understood. And that was the attempt. So I have not just done that. I have also taken up references from the newspapers of the time, magazines of the time, opinion leaders, politicians, books, to see what other opinion leaders, what other political parties are thinking at that time, and how RSS viewpoint may have been contradictory to what others have thought about and very unpopular at the time. But how a period of time you find slowly RSS viewpoint has prevailed. It has changed the narrative, whether it's Jammu Kashmir or Punjab or Northeast. For example, in Jammu Kashmir, insistence on removal of 370, the search for the horrible Article 35A inserted surreptitiously in the Constitution in the appendix. These were things that were brought up by RSS, consistently bringing up the issue of the refugees, of the people who are not getting human rights, the women. This is how slowly the atmosphere was created, narrative was created, and public opinion was molded. So just one example. So this is why this book is very important in terms of understanding how the national scenario, about how RSS makes a resolution, how it has its viewpoint, how it looks at long-term solutions. Also is how it connects various dots. So whether the unrest is in Kashmir, how it is linked to Punjab, how it is linked to Naxals or Northeast Church or in South. These are something unique to RSS worldview because it has got people on the ground. So that thinking comes out from their ears to the ground.
Very true. And this is, I think, a very important contribution to the study of the RSS, because so far we have more propaganda than the objective study of the RSS as an organization, as a movement. So let's come. You mentioned Kashmir, and right now the Kashmir Files is in news. Everyone is watching the movie. The cinema halls are full. For the first time, what was truth about Kashmir has been shown in the mainstream cinema. So let me ask you, what did RSS do on the Kashmir issue? Because lots of people ask, RSS karta kya hai? So from the perspective of conflict resolution, not from the perspective of giving support to the refugees from the Kashmir, not from the perspective of humanitarian aid, but to resolve the conflict of Kashmir, what did RSS do?
See, for example, right from 1947, when the Pakistanis attacked Bharat, RSS was on the field supporting the government and working on the defense of the borders, including losing scores of people in that particular struggle, standing by the Indian government while the National Conference, the later avatar of Muslim Conference, was trying to create mayhem at that time during the independence. I stood up at that time. Then after they were not agreeing to go for accession, Guruji was specially asked to go to Srinagar and meet the Maharaja. And this is now historically accepted that by various witnesses. He went there, he was able to persuade Maharaja. But the whole process was delayed because Nehru had huge personal animosity with Maharaja Hari Singh. I will not get into the detail because there is no time, people can read the book. And not only that, after 370 was brought in, RSS was first to stand on the ground saying it must go. Now the irony of the situation is the people, the Praja Parishad which was created for the particular task by the local people who wanted full accession of Jammu Kashmir with Bharat were called communalists, and people who demanded special status for Kashmir because it has Muslims as majority, which negated the very theory of opposition to two-nation theory, because we accept special privileges for a particular region because there is a community which is in a different ratio as compared to other areas, that itself was contradictory. So this continuous stand against 370 was continuously, people were being educated, their problems were being highlighted, and you know how Shama Prasad Mukherjee sacrificed his life. So that's a different issue. Then slowly, as we kept on passing resolution and working on the ground, whether it's Seva Karya, whether it's actual work on the ground, it was the first organization which actually did a deep study on this particular aspect and had a study group before the resolution was brought in. The resolution for trifurcation of Jammu Kashmir. So I would say it was an effort to isolate the elements which were trying to say, because the projection of 5-6 districts of Jammu Kashmir, or rather Kashmir Valley out of 22 districts, was that entire Kashmir is burning, Jammu Kashmir is burning. Fact was that only 6 districts of Kashmir were actually had trouble spots, which are basically home grounds of Abdullahs and Muftis, etc. But all other areas to be very peaceful. They stood back by the government, whether it was attack in 47, 48, or attack in 65 or in 71. It disproved the fact that actually the entire Jammu Kashmir was burning. So the idea of trifurcation was first floated, which was naturally vehemently opposed by National Conference, etc., saying that this is against Kashmiriyat, which I question the very idea of Kashmiriyat. Again, it's a separate topic. So that was first step. Then the further studies went in. A new body was inspired, the Jammu Kashmir Study Center. That was when the pernicious Article 35 was found. Now, Citizenship Act of 1982, which denied equal right to women, to Dalits, to Gorkhas, to the unfortunate refugees who came from Punjab to Jammu Kashmir, because they didn't have resources to reach Punjab. That was highlighted. Support was given to them, as you said, okay, there are relief committees, etc. But not only that, their problems were continuously highlighted through resolutions, through actual work on the ground, meeting people, telling them about it. And that is when the 35 was found out that was the basis of citizenship bill, which denied these people rights. Valmikis of Punjab, who were not given right despite their promises. And the most pernicious thing was that the scheduled caste people who came from Punjab, the bill said that they will remain scavengers. So even if you ended up with a doctorate or a sports scholarship or a doctor, you cannot practice in Jammu Kashmir. You will remain a sweeper. Imagine. Forget everything else. 1 million Jammu Kashmir, the Kashmiri people from Pakistan who ended up in India because of our fault, never had rights. This was highlighted. Then when 35 was found out, it was very fraudulent. This particular education of the people and continuous pressure on the government. Finally, there was this so-called interlocutors, meetings, which are again exposed totally as one-sided. Same people are met in the valley. Hardly anybody met in Ladakh. One meeting in Jammu of a few minutes. So the entire these things continuously disseminated to the people in general, to government in general, and that is how slowly public opinion is built. And finally, we see that 370 was removed. Just a moment. So this particular way of educating people, I would also comment, which I've said in the book itself, that it was Panther Party which went to the courts to challenge the citizenship bill. RSS or their supporters did not go. So educating people is fine, but not using the legal route was one of the, I would say, major drawback of RSS policy. But overall, finally, its policy prevailed. We know how finally state has been reorganized. It will again be reorganized. So understanding the issues, then finding solution accordingly is typically, you can see in Jammu Kashmir, the valley politicians' games are thoroughly exposed every time. Their corruption are exposed during in the resolutions. And this continues to act on. Last one was, if you remember, Amarnath Yatra agitation. First was 370, that was done by Praja Parishad, where nearly every household got involved. Then the Amarnath agitation, where a small piece of land was given on lease to create some facility for the pilgrims. Even that was denied by militants and by separatists, terrorists, and even politicians saying ecology and whatnot, various things were brought out. And there was a huge agitation. That was a landmark agitation, which every household got involved. RSS, of course, gave full backing, and it went on for a month. Finally, the government buckled down. So this way of bringing raising the consciousness, raising the issues, and finally getting it worked out, I would say in Jammu Kashmir is a typical example. And if you go into detail, you will find even how foreign powers are involved and how it was challenged right from 54 onwards, when people are not even aware their foreign hand was exposed, European games were exposed, and everything was continuously brought to focus on the people, because as I said, number of resolutions passed tell us that eyes were always on Jammu Kashmir.
Yep. It's a geostrategic pivot. So, of course, many powers will be interested in control over that area, because from that area you can control lots of Central Asia as well. But Ratan Sharda ji, coming to Punjab, because Punjab is also in news because of the recent election results. And Punjab was one event which is often, insurgency in Punjab is often not discussed, right? Somehow we have not analyzed it much more deeply as we should have. What was the role of RSS in countering the insurgency in Punjab and also bringing about a resolution of the conflict?
My book is dedicated to one RSS Karyakarta named Jai Krishan ji. When I was doing research on the book, I met him. He was not well, his legs were not working. He was lying on the bed due to some accident. But he's very happy that finally somebody is trying to document what RSS did during those insurgency days. He was head of Secretary of Punjab Rashtriya Suraksha Samiti, which spearheaded the movement of keeping Hindu Sikhs united, stopping the exodus of Punjabis, Monas, as we say, Sahetaris or Hindus from Punjab, because they were basically business and trading class, and how they were being terrorized continuously, and they were asked to leave, and many were leaving. One was to stop the Hindus leaving Punjab. Second was they were trying to create huge rift in Hindu-Sikh unity. Now it's a very long topic, but if I talk as a Punjabi, and many don't know that actually Sikh and Hindus are actually as closely bound as any family. My bhabi is a Sardar, my cousins are Sardars, and this is common that in a family the elder son would become a Sikh and others would remain Monas. This strong tie of the families, I would not get into the theology of how Guru Nanak Dev Ji basically was more inspired by Vedas and Upanishads and Hindu thoughts and not by Islamic thoughts. Now, currently, it is being tried to be projected that, Sikh religion is influenced by Muslims or Islam, which is not true. So this idea of separating the two identities, which are as joined as a nail and the finger or the skin, this was opposed continuously. Jai Kishan ji himself took out huge marches, had public meetings, was challenging Bhindranwala continuously, openly on the grounds. And in fact, he said in a meeting that we know that a Butch is sitting on the Shivling, but we can't hit it because he's on a Shivling. We know how to deal with you. If you come in open, we'll deal with you. That kind of language. Then he said, Hindu Sikh ladan nahi dena, 1947 hone nahi dena, which means we will not allow Hindu Sikhs to fight, and will not have another 1947, which is division of Bharat. So this very courageous act continuously for years was in a major way able to stem the tide of exodus. It was able to keep the Hindu-Sikh fabric together, though it paid a very heavy price. Shakas were attacked. The most infamous attack was Moga, where 25 Swayamsevaks were killed. But the courageous part was in the very next day, 100 people came together to have a Shaka there again. So this boldness, this courage of facing the people and these terrorists, and also continuously standing for unity despite all the poison spread in Punjab, was handiwork of RSS supported organizations that took out a morcha right up to Delhi, met Rajiv Gandhi, tried to meet Rajiv Gandhi, finally met him, met the Home Minister, President, and continuously gave them the inputs. I will not get into it how those people reacted with, that is part of the book. And also the real risk that we see today, appeasement to fringe elements, which was started by Congress, then followed up by the Akalis, who believed that Bhindranwala's danda with which they can beat Congress, they could not. And to go back to the origin of this conflict, in 47, when this partition took place, Sikhs were told that they will get rightful place in Bharat. That was the impression. Of course, Pakistan refused. So they felt they will get a rightful place in Punjab. But there was a movement in Punjab, unfortunately started by Arya Samaj, saying that you write your mother tongue as Hindi. Many Hindus got involved in that. In fact, Jansangh, which was born in 51, also joined this particular idea. But Guruji, who was RSS chief at that time, strongly objected. He has gone under tour. He gave a meeting, strong worded language, saying that you are, everybody of you has mother tongue as Punjabi, every regional language is a national language. You cannot treat this as something different and try to create division. You must write a language as Punjabi. It's on record. While general narrative is that RSS also talked about Hindi, it is not true. Then when the reorganization of states were happening, Guruji was against linguistic states. He was openly, frankly speaking about it everywhere. In Maharashtra, which was very militant days, he spoke against it. But when it did not happen for Punjab, see, reorganization started in 52. Punjab was given statehood in 1966. So he clearly said, when every state has been organized on linguistic basis, why are you denying justice to Punjab? So that was the second point of conflict. And when this happened, Congress deliberately kept the pot boiling by creating problem of Fazilka, Abohar, Chandigarh, etc. This is how they wanted to keep the kettle boiling so they can control. Then when Akalis won the election, they tried to distort, they brought down various Akali ministries. Finally, it ended up in Anandpur Sahib resolution, which was more or less some kind of creation of autonomy, much against even the basic federalism that many people talk of. So this was continually exposed. This was brought to notice of the people. This is how slowly it snowballed into separatist movement. Now, this pandering to extreme elements is what is the real fear even now. I have brought out many times even farmer agitation, which was an economic issue, was converted to a religious issue. If we went to Punjab, you would find Gurdwaras involved in that, you will find SCPC involved in it. And the entire anger of economic policies was turned into a religious anger. And that is how Modi ji was hated. That is how RSS BJP was targeted, because in the first round, RSS BJP stood against this separatism. That is their pain point. And that is why today what is happening is very dangerous, because AAP has no clue. It has got support from many Khalistani elements. In fact, one of the organization has openly written a letter about it. I just saw a video now of some extremists taking out a morcha asking for autonomy, etc. So this fear of pandering to these elements for electoral purposes is the real danger, because you do not know what genie will come out. It is now social media day. It is this huge network of media which was not there at earlier time. So this way that multiplication is huge. So that is the risk today we face.
That's true. But when we come to the farmers' protest, right? It's a very recent event. But did RSS play any role in the farmers' protest to bring the conflicting sides together and find an optimal solution?
Yes, if you see the statements of RSS, they clearly said that we have to bring people together. They have to be explained what is the issue and listen to farmers. This statement was given by the RSS Chalak. It was also expressed on various platforms. Bharatiya Kisan Union, Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, which is a subsidiary of Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh or branch of Mazdoor, they also came on the field. They tried to educate people, but see, the disinformation campaign was so strong. Unless government really took upon very strong communication strategies, an organization could not come up to the level of explaining that thing. In Punjab, the polarization was huge because the bill was not explained to people even before the agitation took place. I had my own information. Already it was highly polarized. Every section of Punjab society was totally against the farming bill. Nobody could explain what was wrong with it, but it was against it. So people said, galat hai, galat hai. But beyond that, nobody wanted to talk. So naturally, RSS didn't have the strength to talk about it in Punjab, but wherever it could, it explained, it wanted the government to be more open to discussion, be more seen as more open to talk to people and remove their misconceptions. But unfortunately, it couldn't happen. We know the history now, but it was vitiated by a very small element of Khalistanis used that particular platform, whether it's Delhi border or Punjab, even Canada, etc. We know. And it was, I would put it as a communication failure by the government, and of course exploitation by the people who are already creating a narrative which is started in 1980s. I talk about it, where continuously distortion of Sikh history, distortion of Hindus, the Sikh scriptures by very well-researched people who are taking the British line, the British historians' viewpoint and their interpretation of Guru Granth Sahib, etc., into account and trying to vitiate the atmosphere, or rather deviate the entire theology and entire philosophy of Sikhi. That is the risk which saw the manifestation in the farmer agitation, which was used for that purpose. Misuse, I would say.
But now let's come to the another major issue, which is the issue of the Northeast, and that remains a challenge for policymakers even today. We often forget that Nagaland was the first trouble spot after independence before Kashmir. Nagaland incident happened before independence. What has been the role of RSS in the Northeast? and especially in dealing with the questions of Nagaland, Mizoram, which are not Hindu majority, which are in fact Christian majority, because often RSS is simply dismissed as a communal organization which cannot work with the Christian population or the non-Hindu population. So, what has been the role of RSS in the Northeast to resolve the conflicts which are there? And there are many conflicts in Northeast.
In fact, my book, I have pointed out each and every conflict that took place for different reasons. But let me go a little backward. The American Baptist Church entered Northeast when it was called only Assam way back in 1836. So they have a long history of conversion, long history of not just conversion, uprooting the very culture of that society, uprooting the people from the culture, and also trying to divide the people. So people who did not convert were shown as sinful, that you have to break your ties up with them, you have to break your God's images and not do any typical tribal traditions, etc. So this was the beginning of alienating the people from the very soil. By the time RSS went to Northeast, that was in Assam in 1946, then the ban came. So much work didn't happen. Then 1950, Eknath Ranade went to the Assam part, stayed there 15 days. He came back to Maharashtra. He was at that time Sir Kareba, which is General Secretary, and he told the local Sanghchalak of Maharashtra, Baba Rao Bhide, that if we don't provide pracharaks immediately start work in Assam, it will be lost in another 10 years. That was his reading. So 10 pracharaks immediately came up, 8 from Maharashtra, 1 from Punjab, 1 from another part, and they started RSS work there. Now RSS didn't have resources, so it chose a different path. It realized that the oppressive policies of church and its strong encouragement to separatist elements and the way it could persecute the people who went there was immense. So they started working in education. The major problem in North is education, employment, and also uprooting of their traditional tribal customs. So it started working on that. It started schools there. It started health services there. Not only just RSS, it was Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, it was Vivekanand Kendra, also Ramakrishna Mission. So all these people started whatever resources they had to start schools, to start economic activities, to start reviving their pride in their culture. In fact, the first Vishwa Hindu Parishad conference took place in Northeast, in Assam at that time, after the first conference that took place in Prayag. So the importance of Northeast was very well known. All the top adhikaris used to go to Northeast continuously. Maharashtra was given the charge of North in the sense of providing resources of including human manpower. Every RSS Pracharak of Maharashtra has some year or the other has gone to Northeast work there, and also open hostels for the people there. We have Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, RSS inspired organizations who have hostels for the tribal students. Do not convert a single person. Christians are in their hostels. Everybody is in their hostel. They don't convert. They provide right atmosphere for nationalist learning, for their education, and it is being highly appreciated. So when this conference took place, people said, "No, Northeast wale tribal to Hindu hai nahi. They are animist. They are nature loving. They have no link to the Hindu thought. So and they are eating beef, etc. You shouldn't call them Hindus." Guruji at that time said, "We are also animist. We have Nag Puja. We have nature puja. We celebrate those events. Actually, they are as good as us. As for their food habits, it is due to so many compulsions they have these food habits. They will slowly change, but they are as Hindu as we are." So this kind of openness brought them together. This indigenous faith or movement, which was very small, has slowly gathered steam over years, and people are trying to go back to their roots. The differences were created in terms of the script, script which was imposed as the Roman script. Then people who supported local script and supported local language revival, they were even killed. So this entire game plan was slowly changed by continuously working with the people, creating confidence. I'll just narrate one incident. We don't have much time, but I'll narrate one incident. Bhaiyaji Kane was a teacher in Maharashtra who was requested by Guruji to go to Northeast to start a school. He was very senior. He went to Northeast. He started a school in Ukhrul, which is 6 kilometers from Myanmar border in Manipur. And it took 3 days to even go to that school, to reach that school. So if we finally got students there, he started teaching. But he realized that we need to have exchange of people coming from Bharat to Northeast or the mainland, I would say, from for better word, to Northeast, and Northeast people going to other parts of Bharat to see how close we are, our culture is close, and how people actually are like us. Because there was a tendency of saying India, there was tendency saying nobody loves us. Total neglect of Northeast was the key issue. So he said, I want to take some children to Maharashtra. We will teach them, we will keep them there, and also take them around. This idea of exchanging people has been picked up by Vidyarthi Parishad later on, student experience in interstate living. Sunil Devdas started that organization of his own to have exchange of people going and visiting each other. So at that time, local people said, no, we can't send the children. Some people said that he will convert them, he will, sell their kidney, etc., etc. So he had an idea. He had a young student named called Jayant. Now this Jayant is still there in Dombivli. He works for Northeast even now. So he said, "Aisa karo, you keep this boy with you, and you send your children with me. If I come back, then you return Jayant to me, or you can keep him and see the content of Jayant." He said, "Okay, I'll stay here." So that is how the first exchange of students took place in Northeast. This is the condition from the work started. Then this continuous neglect of Northeast, which we see continuously till 2014. The ground was at the time very ripe to have this view that you are not, which was continuously seeded by Sangha, that you are not separate, you are like us only. And they started believing. And then the Vikas Leher came 2014. And this complete optimism that came after that, that was a major icebreaker. Now you see the conflicts have been reduced. The fight is reduced. There is confidence in the government. And whether a few groups still want to fight, people in general don't want to fight. The rise of BJP in North is exemplary. Nobody ever thought that BJP will have a place. BJP is supposed to be Hindutva party. It is supposed to be run by RSS. But people have given confidence. People have given total vote of confidence. Manipur you have seen now. So this is how that change has taken 70 years of hard work on the ground. And now indigenous movement is picking up pace. And people are returning to faith. Very small amount of trickle. But that feeling that we have been uprooted from our own roots and how we are missing our own people, our own traditions is also slowly seeping in. And atmosphere in Northeast, which was continuously worked for 70 years, finally has seen fruition in terms of huge development and people strongly believing that part of Bharat, which was not so earlier on, when there was hardly any seat, it was never discussed in national TV, whether it is election or anything else. It was what Rajdeep Sardesai called tyranny of distance. Tyranny of distance is gone now, and now it has become part of narrative. It has become part of news. And I just went. I had a meeting about 6 months back. The journalist told me in that meeting, "कि sir, आज भी temperature और weather temperature केवल गुवाहाटी का दिखाया जाता है. Northeast is huge. It has got different weathers. So can you please at least do this small favor? This is during the BJP government." So I passed a request to Prakash Javadekar ji that, see, this is a very small thing to do. He immediately took the idea, and thereon DD and radio started giving weather forecast for Northeast from different regions. This is how less attention was paid to Northeast, how it has changed completely. And I would say the great success of syncretic nature of Sangha work, taking people along what they understand and working out according to the environment. So whether it's changing of policy of fine-tuning their view in Punjab, in Jammu Kashmir, Northeast, and choosing the battleground based on the issues there, the weakness, strength of the issues there. And there is strong underpinning of cultural nationalism. It is never given up. So we are all on one. So this idea of Idumishmi tribe that our Rukmini is our daughter and she got married to Krishna. This idea of taking Idumishmi tribe to Dwarka. These are the kind of cultural exchanges which is slowly bringing out the unity of cultural unity of Bharat, which is on what RSS continuously worked on.
That's very interesting things you have told us about, and this is something which is the hallmark of RSS, that you work with a long-term vision instead of short-term compulsions. But thank you, Ratan Sharda ji, for giving your time and discussing this wonderful topic, because many people don't know what RSS actually does on the ground to solve the conflicts with a long-term horizon. And I will request everyone to read this book, Conflict Resolution the RSS Way by Ratan Sharda and Yashwant Pathak ji. Please make sure you buy this book, just like you are watching Kashmir Files. You should also buy and read this book as well. But Ratan ji, thanks a lot for giving your time, and thank you for coming to the show.
Thanks, Abhinav ji, for giving me the stage. And I hope that people do learn about what are the real national issues And when Vivek Agnidri wanted to make the book and doing a lot of research, I also offered him my documents. He also gets an idea. And what happens when you read the book and when you research, you are a little objective, a little, keeping a distance from the actual events. So it doesn't hit you so hard, though I have met those people there. The way Vivek has brought this out in Kashmir Files, it hits you like a hot brick. I broke down in the movie twice. I would not share the incidents despite doing all this. And you're surprised when I wrote the article about 35A, how human rights are violated for women, for scheduled caste tribes and refugees. Even an erudite person like Anand Ranganathan was totally shattered. And he shared his views openly on the social media, which became a huge viral, his chat. And also he shared the article. So with people who are also well-educated, this is not known, you can understand how far remote we are from the realities due to the way media presents the issues. Now even Kashmir Files being opposed, saying you are exploiting the emotions. And I won't get into more details, we'll have more people talking about that. But emotions were destroyed, emotions were exploited when people try to deny the entire Holocaust. I met a person yesterday who said in Pune that I was refused to allow do research or PhD on the Kashmiri Hindus issues. They said it's divisive, it's a myth, it's not working. So it's denied it. I'm talking of today's Pune University, not far off. This is how far we are removed from the realities. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Ratanji. And thank you, audience, for watching us. Hoping to see you soon again. Thanks a lot.
Dhanyavad.